2 weeks ago, we all sat on our couch for 4 straight days watching the best players on earth navigate Augusta National, drain 8-foot putts, and then we went out and played golf, missed a few of those 8-foot putts, and decided that our putting is absolutely garbage. Time to throw out that old putter, go grab a new one on eBay. But what if I told you that from 8 feet, the best amateur golfers on the planet miss over half of their 8-foot putts? Or what if I told you a tour pro misses 3 out of 4 of their putts from 15 feet? What if the reason you feel terrible about your putting has nothing to do with your stroke or your putter and has everything to do with a set of expectations that were never real in the first place? 74 million golf shots say you're probably not a bad putter. You just think you should be making every single putt that nobody makes even the majority of the time. And the belief is doing more damage to your game than your stroke ever could. Hayden, do you feel like your expectations for yourself are realistic?
Yeah, I think for myself, playing golf professionally, I try to have the highest expectations, but the highest expectations don't mean reality. And the reality is that putting's hard. There's a lot of factors that go into putting, and it can be really difficult to get on a good streak of putting and keep it going and not fall into the trap that many golfers fall into, where you just think that you're a bad putter.
I do want to frame this conversation as you should actively try to make every single putt or expect yourself to make every single putt. But how you react to it when it doesn't go in, that's where this whole conversation lies because having confidence and going into every single putt, trying to make it, thinking you're going to make it, like that's setting yourself up for success. But when you miss it, which we all miss putts, that's just part of the game. Your reaction is going to have everything to do with how you're going to hit the next shot. And this is where we talk about snowballing a little bit. I think that this expectation conversation can get weird too because some of the best putters ever, like we were talking earlier this week about the Brad Faxon interview, how he was talking about he never thought about his three putt percentage until that stat came out. I think part of this conversation too needs to be framed in what works best for you. Just like anything else, we need to make our putting personal. We need to make our expectations for ourselves a little bit personal as well, based on handicap, and then we need to make the way that we react to missing and making putts personal too.
The bad habit that I find myself falling into is judging my whole round of putting based on the last couple of holes I played. So, for example, last tournament I played, I shot 5 under. Okay, I had a 15-footer on the last hole to shoot 6 under. It was an uphill putt. I look at uphill putts. Anyone looks at uphill putts, oh, they should be easier. You can hit it a little harder. You can be more aggressive. Um, I had made putts similar to that length in that day. In fact, a playing partner of mine made it almost right on top of me, the same hole, a different line, so I wasn't getting the read, but I missed that putt. And I look at my whole day as, man, I probably could have putted better. I look at my stats and it says that I gained 3.5 strokes putting. So I think we obviously can very much benefit from reshaping our thoughts, reshaping some of our expectations on putting, and really dive into what the stats say, but really dive into what we do with those stats, how it affects our practice, and then how it affects what we think about on the golf course.
I think that's where this conversation gets interesting because you, like you said, it does have to affect how you practice as well. I want to run through, I've got four kind of interesting stats for you when it comes to putting based on 74 million plus golf shots between Arcos and Shot Scope and all other kinds of data conglomerates, if you will. Inside of 2 feet, a 20 handicapper misses what percentage of putts? What
I
do we
can't
think?
give you I can't give you an accurate number because I just looked at our show notes.
Oh gosh, dang it. Well, it's
But
15%. Like
I would have
15%
thought
is
I would have thought
crazy.
like 5%.
Yeah, 15% is crazy.
It is
And
crazy.
but that's where a lot of us who maybe just got into golf over COVID or we're just getting into golf after college and you're missing some putts inside 2 feet where it feels like this should be easy.
Yeah.
This game is not easy, and so
Yeah.
you're bound to miss as a 20 handicap. You're bound to miss 15% of your putts inside of 2 feet.
Yeah.
Now, what you're going to say is, well, maybe I miss or I make more. Well, then your handicap's probably not actually 20.
Yeah.
8 feet. Amateur golfers across all handicap levels make less than 40% of putts from 6 to 9 feet.
Yeah.
So in that range, you're making not only less than 50%, you're making less than 40% on average
Yeah,
on at every single level, which is
yeah.
crazy. That's another one where you stuff one really close, you happen to hit a really good iron shot, and you think like you're due now to make
Mhm.
that putt. Like, you should try to go make that putt, but you're not due.
Yeah, especially I think there's definitely a difference between putting for par and putting for birdie. I think when we have the birdie putts that are within 15 feet, there is a whole lot of kicking yourself when you don't make it because it's probably, whether, unless it's a par five, it's probably a really good approach shot and a shot that, yeah, you hit it how you're trying to, it used the contours of the green, it did something, but you ended up at a spot where, man, I can make a birdie. And you might be a person who doesn't make a lot of birdies. And so those 15 footers and then, oh, I mean, like, I know for myself, any putt that I quote unquote deem as makeable and I don't make, putting's binary. It's either you do it or you don't. And so when I don't do it, I get a little more upset with myself. I start self analyzing. I start, if I'm not in the right headspace, I can have some negative self talk that definitely affects what the future holes will be.
Yeah, I think for me, moving into the next stat from 10 feet, this is the it feels like I should be able to make all of these, and it feels like I make significantly less than I should, but a scratch golfer only makes about 1 in 3. So you could hit 3 phenomenal iron shots during a round of golf and have 3 10-foot birdie putts and walk off the course being like, "Man, I should have shot 2 shots better than I did." If you had an average putting day, you did exactly what you were supposed to do. You probably had an above average iron day. Or this is the where chipping becomes important from a scoring perspective because if you're not chipping it closer, your scores like the majority of getting up and down is actually just chipping. And that's probably a whole nother episode there. And where you can really get where this can really get away from you is from 30 plus feet. Um, I'm curious, you're a professional golfer. Luke is probably, we're gonna say I'm gonna say for the purpose of this exercise, he's a 25 handicapper. How big of a difference do you think there is between you and Luke from 30 plus feet in terms of make rate?
Make rate,
Yeah.
probably not a ton of difference.
No, there is very, very like not even a statistical difference.
I feel like there's a three putt difference, but not a
Definitely a three putt
not a
difference,
make
but
difference.
people think that's another one where
Yeah,
you hit a really good 7 wood to
yeah,
35 feet and it's like, "Oh yeah, I'm ready to make an eagle now." It's
yeah,
just try to get it as close as you possibly can.
yeah. No, I think a lot about a lot of the people that I caddy for, and they're in that 15 plus handicap range. And a lot of times they don't have any preference. So they'll keep the flag in outside of that 30 feet and they'll make one. Now, maybe it's because they hammer that speed and it hits the flag and drops down, but that, that, that absolutely makes a lot of sense why you really shouldn't be focusing on that make. You should be focusing on having the best speed possible, where the second putt is very manageable. If not, hey, that's good. Pick it up. You did a
Yeah.
good, good putt.
Yeah, try to make it, expect to make it, don't be surprised when you miss it.
Hmm.
It's kind of like try to hit a great iron shot, expect to hit a great iron shot. This works in every single level of golf. Works a little bit in life too, right?
Yeah,
Which you mentioned earlier, there's kind of this loop that you can get yourself in where maybe you miss a short one, you get really frustrated, you get to the next tee box, you try to hit one really hard, you're really pushing, right? Can you talk to me a little bit about what maybe emotionally happens after you miss a quote unquote should make putt?
ooh, man, I think about the worst putting tournament I had last year. It was in St. Louis, and I won't go into the technicals of what mechanically I was doing wrong that was causing me to potentially pull and push a lot of putts. But basically, I was hitting down on the ball. So you hit down the ball's going to bump a little bit, and I was putting on grainy greens. And so if you're putting on any type of grain and that ball is bouncing, then the grain's going to kick it left, right, unless you're putting straight down or you're putting straight into that grain, which is very unlikely. And so I was missing a lot of early putts. And in fact, a lot of them were not even for birdie. I missed the green. I chipped it to 4 feet, missed the putt, missed the green, have a very tough chip a great, wedge shot or a little great pitch shot to 6 feet, 5 feet, missed the putt. And I remember bringing my dad, who was caddying for me, aside and being like, hey, I'm borderline freaking out right now. because these are putts that I normally make, and I have a hard time, and I think a lot of golfers have a hard time knowing if they pull or push it, like 100% definite no, because when you're doing a putt, and if you're watching on video, you'll see what I'm doing. You're looking at it sideways like this with your eye canted down. If you can line up perfectly from that, we won't probably won't talk about this, so I'll say it of my little quick rant. You should never line up and then look at the hole and think, it's probably breaking more. Because what is telling you that you're able to read a putt better by looking this way, looking over at the hole, as opposed to actually just like standing behind it and seeing all that goes into the green. So that's a rant for another story or for another time. But
That's a
I
great
think
clip though. Appreciate
it
that.
is. I think back to that round, and I think back to me saying to my dad, "Hey, like, I'm kinda freaking out right now," and what I should have been thinking, or what my dad could have immediately said to me after that is, "Hey, look, like, you're gonna be due, okay? So, like, statistically, you've missed these putts, you're gonna make the next ones. It's just how it's gonna be because you're a great putter, so your averages are already better than maybe what PGA Tour averages are." And so if you just focus on, hey, the next ones are more likely to go in, keep doing your process, focus, don't panic, don't think about your stroke, avoid all those things, you'll be good.
A missed putt inside of 20 feet statistically means you're due eventually. You will make one of the like you every single miss inside of 20 feet, every single miss inside of 20 feet is one putt closer to one of those putts going in. That's not like a mythical thing, that's just stats, right? And I think part of this too is like we referenced earlier, we watched the Masters, we're filming this before the Masters, so congratulations to Patrick Reed for winning. He probably hooped one on 16 from 15 feet. We all see that. The crowd goes insane. It went right in the heart. It's like, oh yeah, putting's easy. That's sweet. But his make rate from that range is 25%. Like PG Tour average is 25% from 15 feet. And so now, without that background, we expect us to go make a 15 footer with much less pressure. So we go out, we have a miss from inside of 15 feet, we feel like a failure. Then that, when we start, like you say, we start to get a little over analytical. We start to freak out a little bit. We're trying to like figure out in real time what's going wrong when in reality it could have just hit like a little pitch mark. And then we start getting too mechanical or procedural, or we lose sight of what our normal process is, and now we're outside of our normal process. And like this is just a spiral that happens, and the whole spiral started because we think that we're a better putter than Patrick Reed, or not that even we're a better putter, that we're half as good of a putter as Patrick Reed or whoever actually ended up winning. I'm throwing a lot of takes out
Yeah.
before the Masters about
Well,
who's going to
think
win, by the way.
yeah, think about this too, Isaac. So we're watching the Masters, okay? We're watching the guys who are at the top of the leaderboard. We're watching them make tons of putts. If you watch any tournament covers that's not the last 2 hours, you'll actually watch some incredible golf because you're watching the guys who are catapulting up the leaderboard, and then in the filler, they'll show you, this one player is at 4 over par right now, and he's got a 40-footer. Like, I wonder why they're showing him. They probably just wanna show this cool highlight, and they're making it look like it's live and making it look like they were already gonna show this guy anyway, but he makes the putt.
Yeah.
Okay, so he makes the 40-footer. Well, you think, well, I'm never going to be like so and so player, but 40-footer. Well, let's cut that in half because I'm probably half the player that he could probably be, maybe on the putting green. And so I should probably make some 20-footers. Like I haven't made any 20-footers all that often. I'm probably a bad putter. Like absolutely not.
Yeah, this is a really interesting conversation. I do want to preface, we have a full breakdown for every single handicap level. I'll link that down below. It's completely free. It's got everything from putting to approach play to chipping to off the tee, and so you can see kind of what you should expect at your handicap level. I, this is another one where I also think you can slide to the other side, where it's like you may not realize you're a bad putter. Like I didn't realize how bad my putting was last summer until I played 4 competitive rounds of the Ohio Am and looked back and went, "Holy crap, I almost averaged a 3 putt every 4 holes." Like, it doesn't matter where I'm hitting it on the green, like, that's objectively bad. And at that point in the season, like, it's almost too late to come back from that, like, the press, I gotta simplify some things, I was changing putters, I was doing all kinds of stuff at the end of last year, And so this year I'm catching myself early. And I do think that putting, especially for those of us who work a 9 to 5, who don't necessarily have quick access to an outdoor putting green, like I have access to an indoor putting green, it's just different, right? It's great for working on speed, but reading greens is a whole nother skill. And so the earlier, the more often you can get outside and work on real greens, the better. And especially real greens that are going to be relatively similar to what you're going to be playing. I mean, I know for you, this week you played a practice round at Salina for your US Open local. How much of your practice rounds are you finding you're having to really pay attention to even grass types? Because I know grass types can change a little bit more in the South than up here. Like it's just going to be bent and it is what it is. And maybe I'm paying attention to speed or, does this break more or less than it looks like it will? How much of this putting problem do you think is overlooking straight up the value of green reading?
Yeah, the value of green reading is if you can hit it online, if you have decent speed, the third piece of the puzzle is green reading. For me, I use aim point, and I feel like it gives me a very good baseline of how far out from the hole I should be aiming. And then based on what I know of myself, based on the speed that I typically try to hit it, that's when I factor in. I always say I do 70% of my read through aim point, and then 30% is based on my eyes and what I feel and the speed. Is it uphill, downhill? What has the greens been like today? And so when you can confidently understand breaking the breaks of putts, where you can confidently understand, hey, where's my 6 o'clock putt? So the putt that's straight uphill. Where am I at in relation to that 6 o'clock putt? If I aim this ball a little bit outside the hole, how hard can I hit it where when it gets to the hole, it'll go in dead center? When you kind of figure out all those different factors, and it comes with a lot of reps, and these can be on course reps that you play in competitions with friends or in tournaments, or these can be on the putting green reps. But I feel like putting just really boils down to paying attention and
Mm.
really paying attention, not hitting putts willy nilly, not grabbing three balls and then just going from hole to hole. And then I got 5 minutes left. Let me do like a little 4 hole putting game. Like just really paying attention to where did I line up? Where did the ball go? And how hard did I hit it?
Yeah, I do wanna talk a little bit about paying attention typically comes like 90% of that's before the shot, right? Because once you're over the ball, you wanna be in play mode, you wanna just be pulling the trigger. I thought it was interesting you mentioned, like, it's hard to read a green like this if you're looking on video, like you're looking down the line.
Yeah.
Because what I found, and this is where you gotta start figuring out what works best for you, that's actually where my first read comes from, and I find that's where I get my best read from, which is really interesting. Like, that's typically my read doesn't change much after I set the coin down, I set a step over it like I'm gonna hit the putt, and that's typically where I get my best read from inside of 20 feet where it's not gonna break a ton super far away from me. And that's where having a process that works well for you matters a ton. If you if I timed your pre-shot like routine and preparation on 10, 20 footers, what do you think the difference would be between as a professional golfer, the difference would be between in terms of timing?
Like my differential,
Yeah,
I would be I would hope that it's within half a second.
yeah,
I mean, I really try to do the exact same thing. Brad Faxon always talks about treating putting as an athletic movement. You got a long drive, athletic movement. You're taking a big turn. Chipping, pitching, you have a lot of hand movement. That's an athletic movement. Treating putting like that. So always having a little bit of movement, trying not to hit putts coming off of 100% still, stagnant. I've been here for 3 seconds and then I go he talks about that, and I like that thought process because putting is very much based on your attitude, and putting is very much based on like going into it thinking that this is something that I'm going to have high expectations for, but not having the results be tied to what I deem what that outcome was. So we've talked about this a lot. There is grain, there is wind if it's windy, there is foot traffic, there is inconsistent blades on the mowers, There is a golf ball that, Bryson tells us that we should soak our balls in Epsom salt to know where the equilibrium of the ball is, and we're putting it on. There's so many factors that go into putting. You could hit some great putts and they don't go in. You've seen the videos of the guys that use the putting ramps and that kind of show you where, and they put five balls down and the balls roll at five different directions. Sometimes you're just putting on bad greens, and it doesn't mean you're a bad putter. And so when you think about your attitude with putting on the putting green, you have to very much focus on a little bit, like just a couple things. So I always like putting that ball. I always like, as soon as that ball is lined up, or if you've picked your line, as soon as it's picked, all you do is focus on speed. You don't do anything else but just focus on speed. If you can do that and not focus on the mechanics, where my hands are, or am I pinching my elbows? Am I having impact and then waiting a second to look up, like not lifting my, just focus on the small little things and your putting will improve.
Yeah, and it's interesting, I'm sure you saw that video of Bailey Shoemaker that kinda
No.
went viral about her standing over a ball for 72 seconds at the, Onwa. She had nerve damage, it was people were tearing her apart, but, she literally stood over the ball for 72 seconds, which opened up kind of a can of worms of how important is pre-shot routine and consistency of pre-shot routine, and did a little bit of research into that, and it's across every single sport. Pre-shot routine is everything. Your ability to continuously do that routine, and you're not trying to check like you have to do this and you have to do this and you have to do this and you have to fit it within a certain amount of time. Being able to just do the same thing over and over and over again consistently produces better results. You look at it in free throw shooting, you look at it in tennis, serving a tennis ball, and then you look at it in golf. Their pre-shot routine is so unbelievably important. And so I want to jump in a little bit
Yeah.
to how we can actually take these items and act on them. And so I think it starts with that green reading. Get out and just figure out your process, whatever that may be. If you're more analytical, maybe try out some of the more systematized versions. If you're more feel, maybe start setting coins halfway where you think it needs to roll over, and try to start calibrating your eyes and your body to be able to see and feel those slopes. And then second is we need to get a pre-shot routine down.
Yeah.
uh, I talked about it a little bit in that YouTube video. Don't go watch that now, finish this, but then go watch that. But uh, pre-shot routine comes down to 2 basic boxes, if you will. You've got your preparing box where you're figuring everything out that you need to figure out. And this is in every shot, but for putting, it's going to be what's my line going to be? What's the speed I want this thing to be going in at? Where's the grain at? You're figuring out what your desired outcome is and how you're going to get there. And then when you get over the ball, we're going into play mode and we're just trying to focus on doing that thing. What does that process look like for you?
Well, I really wanted to speak to that because our bodies and our brains thrive on consistency. And so having a consistent pre-shot routine would absolutely make golf easier for you, and having some consistency knowing what you like to do when you putt and also knowing what you like to see with the ball either going 6 inches past the hole, like barely dying, or knowing like, you know what, I can hit it firm. I like hitting it firm. And if it goes 3 feet by, I'm not worried about having to hit a 3 footer coming back. So
Yeah.
finding consistency is going to be super huge. You asked about my pre-shot routine. I like to have practice strokes right beside the ball, but I line the ball up. And I feel like for me, the reason that I line the ball up is because I like to take some things out of the equation. So like once I have that line fully down, I don't have to wonder if I'm walking into the ball and I'm not aimed where I'm supposed to be aiming. I can get really good completely lining up my putter with a line that's already down. And so I feel like what helps me play golf the best is what we've really been preaching, is keeping it simple, taking things off your plate, allowing yourself to be more free. And so when it comes to my routine, yeah, I take some practice strokes. I try to look at the hole multiple times. And so I actually take a practice stroke, look at the hole, get right into my setup. Like I walk right back up into the ball. I look at the hole one more time, and when I'm putting my best, as soon as I look right back at that ball, boom, I go. It's keeping that athletic movement. It's doing what Brad Faxon teaches of keeping your putting being a full movement based stroke, not coming off of a completely stagnant, um, you know, posture. because there's really no sport where you do that and you do it well. You know, you think baseball players, they're stepping in before they even start swinging. They're having a lot of movement. You see those guys. I'm trying to think, is it Aaron Judge that like, or is it Shohei? One of those two. And again, great batters. They almost like have a full on like twitch movement right when that ball is being pitched so that they can go into that spot and they're not just doing a very athletic movement from a stagnant spot.
Yeah, that's spot on. So if you've got questions about how to develop a pre-shot routine or anything like that, comment down below. I'll also link that video about Bailey and pre-shot routine and all that, so you can go check that out. It's a shorty. It's a short video. So when we talk about expectations, I do want to kind of set some ground rules. Obviously, we've got that card down below that you can download that'll give you an idea of how many putts should I be making from certain ranges based on my handicap. But from a high level perspective, I want to walk through kind of each grouping. So inside of 3 feet, we got to be trying to make these. Like if we're missing more than one every once in a while because it was a really tough putt or we didn't take our time or whatever it is, like this is one where you just got to get the face square to the hole and it'll go in, right? 3 to 6 feet, this is where handicaps start to really separate. Scratch golfers make 76% of their putts from this range. PJ Tour players make 87%. That's a big gap. That's kind of a like I'm closer to LeBron than you'll ever be to me kind of a vibe, but still that's a big difference. And then a 15 handicapper makes 60%. So if you're making 2 out of 3 from this range, you're doing okay. But this is where handicaps do really start to separate is from 3 to 6 feet. I do think that's where green reading starts to play a bigger part as well. 6 to 10 feet, this is kind of bonus territory because your make rate is most likely under 50%. So really focus on good speed, making sure that you're giving that ball as good of a chance to go in as possible. But also like don't lose your marbles over a missed 7 footer. Like it's like crying over spilled milk kind of territory. 10 to 20 feet is even more similar to that. Give it as good of a chance to go in, but ultimately the goal here is to be able to just tap the next one in. And yeah, we're trying to make every single putt like we talked about earlier, but we're also if we hit it 4 feet by, it didn't have a chance anyway. It gets hard for that ball to go in. So another one really got to focus on speed. And then outside 20 feet, we are just trying to get this thing in into.
So Isaac, you're telling me that if I'm hitting putts and I'm outside 6, let's say outside 8 feet, and I two putt, I should consider that almost like a mini win.
It's definitely a minute. 3 putt is where you're going to actually really start to lose shots. You will lose shots if you miss an 8 footer, but you're not losing a full shot. And statistically, you're due to make one of the next few. And so, as you want to get better at golf, putting is the second most important category for scoring. You really need to be focused on 2 key areas making putts inside of 8 feet, which comes down to green reading and understanding your tendencies and then keeping that process consistent. And then really good speed control from 20, 30, 40 plus feet so that that next putt is just a tap in and we're not making this more difficult than it needs to be. That's my putting my senior year of college was unbelievable. Like I would love to get back to that and I know exactly what it was. I did
Yeah,
two
what? Let's hear
drills
it.
2 drills every single day. This is back when I was doing aim point a little bit more religiously. I had a laser level I would set up on a 2% slope. So this did 2 things for me. It calibrated my aim point and I was able to figure out what the green speeds were that day because you change where you aim based on speed as well. And I still have the laser level or the level. It's got marks underneath every inch. And then I'd set up a Pels putting tutor at that 2% slope mark. So I was getting used to, and I was really struggling with right to lefters that whole year. So I would just set it up 8 feet, 2% slope, right to left. I could calibrate my aim point at the same time as I was making sure that my setup was good and I was hitting my lines. That was how I would start. Then I would go to a ladder drill, which I had all the time in the world. So the way I had it set up at this time, it would take me like an hour and a half to finish, but it's the 4 tees, 1 foot apart. Then you go back 30 feet. And then I would actually do it on both sides. So I was putting up and downhill.
Nice.
I think I did a reel on it recently. So I'll put
You
that in the
did.
middle of us. And I would do those 2 drills. That was about 2 hours of putting to start the day, and then I typically at the where I was playing at in college, there were a bunch of old guys that would be in and out of there who were really good players, so I would try to get some kind of putting match going. But like, my 3 focuses there were setup and start line, green reading, and speed control. Like, I just need to get back to that. And actually, the episode we did with where I did with Will Davenport recently, I would strongly encourage everybody to go listen to that. I texted him a few days later because I he said something about he knew he needed to become a better putter in order to compete with the best at mid-ams in the world. And I was like,
Yeah.
I feel that too. And I was, you're in the middle of a podcast, you're not I should have asked this in the moment. So I texted him later. I was like, "Hey, when you said that, what did you mean?" And I won't pull up the exact text, but effectively he said, like, you need to have one tool that you work with every single time, and you just need to go like like just go do it like when it comes to reading greens. So to work on your setup and your start line, have one single tool, check from Isaac from college. And I was going and practicing green reading. And those lag putting drills also teach you a little bit of green reading on those long putts because you start to see how things curve as it gets longer or shorter. It's I don't know. I'm curious, like, do you have one tool that you use?
Well, I wanted to ask you a quick question. So, setup, green reading, speed control, start line. Those are the things that you focused on when you were in college. Last year was not your best. What were you focusing on then?
I was primarily focused on my ball striking. I felt like if I could get my ball striking in a really good spot, it was gonna really, really help me because that raises my floor. But unfortunately, my putting fell off so much that I actually ended up like my floor was much worse than it was beforehand, and my ball striking was good last year. Like,
Yeah.
I hit my irons really nicely, I hit my driver really nicely, um, I chipped pretty well, but, like,
Yeah.
my putting was just so abysmal that, and I was
What was
changing
it?
so much. I mean, I used 3 different putters in competition last year.
Yeah.
Like, there was just no and, yeah, towards the end of the year, as, like, Ohio Mid-Am, I was doing a similar warm up to what I just described, just in, like, a 15-minute, 20-minute time frame as opposed to doing it for 2 hours. And I do think that my putting got a little bit better towards the end of the year, but as we're starting this year, I'm about 2 months away from, the USAM local qualifier. Shout out to Dominic, he signed up for the same one.
Nice.
I'm excited to lose to him by 40 at his home course.
No, don't say that.
I'm hoping to get a practice round in with him, which will be fun. But that's where my ball striking will come along. I've been playing golf for how long? It's gonna like it'll find its way. Tee shots, we'll figure it out. Like it'll come along. I've been playing golf for how long? But putting is one of those things that I putt in my office all the time. I putt at that indoor facility all the time, and it's awesome for preparing myself for speed and line. But nothing will prepare you for green reading other than going into doing it.
Exactly.
And I even know like why golf has like there's some tools out there that like have slope on it so you can learn how to, you know, learn aim point in your office or whatever. But at the end of the day, like the best way to get better at playing golf is to go play golf. And the second
Yeah.
best way to get better at playing golf is to take it to the driving range, like the golf
Yeah.
course to the driving range. The best way to learn how to read a green is to go read a green. I don't know if there's a second best way to learn how to read a green other than just going and doing it a bunch. And so that's going to be one of my primary focuses this spring, especially, um, because I see you putt. Like we've played in some events together or just played together a bunch, and your process is so tight, but also your green rating is so unbelievably good. And I know that that doesn't just come because you just like woke up one day and became a good green reader. Like you've practiced reading greens over and over again. Will, same thing. Like he's an elite mid am, and one of his main focuses is just going out and practicing green reading. So
Yeah.
that's where I think a big part of my spring is going to be. I need to get really, really good inside 8 feet. I need to get really, really good at green reading, and my speed control needs to be money. And if I can do those things, like then it just comes down to how good are my irons that day.
Yeah. There you go. I'll give one good tip for green reading, and it's macro. It's for everyone. Whenever you're on a green, try to look at and I just said macro, but I'm going to say macro again. Try to look at the macro of the everything that's surrounding you. So, what part of the golf course are you on? And is there higher elevation off of the green in one direction? Is one golf course higher than the other? My uncle played in the US Senior Open last year at the Broadmoor. And the way that golf course is built is right up on a mountain, and you don't realize when you're on the green because you're just looking at the however many square feet, 35, 40 paces deep green, and you're just looking straight at it, but you're not looking at the macro of what's going on. Everyone that week was always saying, hey, if you're putting in this relationship towards the mountain, it's going to break away from it. And you can get on a green and you can think that it's breaking right or it's breaking whatever, but you have to think about gravity affects the golf ball, and the golf ball is going to fall to the lowest point, and we have to understand that the lowest point might be also getting affected by everything that's surrounding a green. So let's take a hole that you and I have played tons of times before. Let's think about hole number one at Springfield. Okay, that one's really easy to understand that the green is going back to front. Super simple, super easy. There's no pressure. That one's simple. But you think about some of the holes that you go out on the back nine that's kind of tucked away. Everything on the golf course generally breaks away from the clubhouse because the clubhouse is sitting up on that hill. So when you're on certain points of the golf course, you look at the areas around the green, and that will tell you generally, like, hey, it should be going this. If it looks straight, it probably should be going this way because the right rough of the green is higher than the left rough of the green. So almost try to focus on the macro of everything as well.
I think that's great. I want to jump in a little bit to how we're supposed to practice putting now based on all these expectations. I will also plug, if you want to get drills specialized to your skill level and the amount of time that you have and the amount of space that you have, you can use code PRGPOD to get a nice little $20 discount on the app. It's going to be, we're not doing any other kind of discount code unless you have a friend who's got the app. So go and download that down below. You can get a free 7-day trial. And if you hate it within the first 30 days, I'll just refund you completely. So go ahead and use that down below before we jump into these drills. Some of these drills we have within the app, some of them are a little bit more general because those drills are very specialized to the skill level that you are. So three
And
to six foot
spoiler
zone.
alert, you won't hate the app.
Yeah,
Spoiler alert, you won't hate it.
it's been great. We've had quite a few people on. We got like 150 some people on it, which is great. And it's been really fun to see how people use their time and use their time wisely and get better at golf with the time and resources they already have. So from 3 to 6 foot, from 3 to 6 feet is where you're going to gain the most strokes relative to your handicap group. This is your biggest area for opportunity. Um, and this is one where, like we said, green reading comes into this a lot. Around the world is, I mean, as good as it gets, right? Or like some kind of Death Star drill where you're hitting, we've got putts north, south, east, west, and we're going 3, 4, 5, 6, or we're going 3, 6, or however on each one of those zones to the hole. What I will say, and I did we talk about this on the bone? We might have talked about this just off camera. Do not do this to the same hole every single time. Like change the hole, like do it once and then change the hole, and then do
You're
it
not
once
getting
and
better
then
at
change the hole.
golf.
Or
You're
if you're
getting
not
better at
changing,
that one hole.
even if you're not changing the hole, let's say it's a busy putting green, at least change the angle. Like, yeah, you've got a little bit of context on the hole, but like, don't hit the same putt 2 times in a row because there is the only scenario where you will hit the same putt 2 times during a round is if you're playing in an outing and you purchased mulligans. And I don't think that that's a thing that happens enough for you to
Yeah,
practice for it. Like,
no.
that's not a skill. You don't want to be second team All American. That's the worst. That's the worst skill in golf is to be second team All American. What about for 20 plus feet, Hayden?
I love the pullback drill. The pullback drill really puts pressure on your first putt to get it as close as possible, and then it makes you have to hit a putt that's outside of 3 feet. If you hit the best possible putts like an inch away, well, now you got to hit a putt that's 3 feet and 1 inch. So all you do is you set up. I like to take two balls, and again, two balls might dive into the hey, we're practicing for a mulligan, but I like to take two balls because it just gives you more putts, and you putt them both to the hole, and then you use the hole as your reference point, and you pull the ball back the length of your putter, which would typically be 3 feet, 36 inches. And then you try to see if you can get three holes in a row. So three holes in a row by doing that is six two putts in a row. It's hard. I
I
probably have done it on my first try maybe once. And most of the time, if I want to do that, it'll take me 30 minutes. You know what? Like if you have 30 minutes and you're like, I don't want to pay for balls at a range. I want to go over to the putting green. Actually, everyone's hitting balls. There's no one at the putting green. I can do this all on myself, like use my own time. 30-minute, that would be a great drill to help improve your speed and improve making putts and reading putts inside of 8 feet.
Two things. I think that drill works with the two balls if you just move them like 4 feet apart from each other.
Yeah.
You're giving yourself maybe a little different angle, maybe like 3 feet closer. So that's a good way to do that. If you want to be able to measure some kind of drill like that, like let's say you've got 30 minutes and you're wanting to really gamify your practice, and for whatever reason you don't want to do this in Play Ready Golf, ask ChatGPT or whichever AI is your favorite for 18 random numbers between 3 and 60, or however long of a putt that you can hit on your putting green.
Yep.
Copy and paste that into your notes. Go through and hit all those putts one at a time to different holes, different, randomize it a little bit. Keep track of how many putts you had from each spot, and then throw it back in and ask for your strokes gain number. Because this way you can do this drill multiple times and you don't have to hit from the same spots, and you can figure out if you're getting better at putting or not.
Yeah.
Now, like we said, putting is a little bit binary. So you could have one where you like hole a 60-footer and that takes over your strokes gained for that session. But that's why doing something like that over time can give you a good trend line of if you're getting better or not, or just gamifying it, or knowing, oh, last time I did this well and now I'm starting to figure out I need to make these certain putts, and it adds a pressure level, and it can spiral in a good way, right? Now, when it comes to all these drills that we're referencing, if it feels too easy, it's just not working. Like if I'm just benching the bar for years and years and years, like I'm not getting stronger. I'm just benching the bar, and so we want your success rate to be around 65 to 70%. That's the optimal success rate for motor learning. So if you're making 9 out of 10 on your first try, you got to make it a little harder. Um, or if you're let's say we're doing that, around the world drill, and we do it right the first time. Like okay, now we know that our goal is to do it at two different holes all the way through on one try, right? We can make things more difficult, just like we would in the gym. We're trying to progressively overload. We're trying to get stronger. We're trying to get better. Um, yeah, I think that's kind of where this. We started with you're not a bad putter, and we're finishing with how to become a better putter, because really we're all bad putters relative to somebody. Like I'm a bad putter relative to you. You're a bad putter relative to Patrick Reed.
Nope.
Congratulations on his second green jacket.
Nope. I'm not.
And I would love to push back on that, but you are a very good putter.
No, keep going. You're good.
But also like Patrick Reed hoops it, man. If
He
you're still
does.
listening at this point in the podcast and you do not have the app, seriously, PRG Pod, that's your code for $20 off. You're gonna love it. Hayden, you got anything else before we break?
No, I was just gonna say if Patrick Reed ends up like missing the cut, I don't know. You might have to extend the discount code for longer. We'll see.
If Patrick Reed misses the cut, I'm going on Wednesday. I was gonna say I'd buy one of those skip it hats. If Patrick Reed misses the cut,
you'll buy one on eBay for 3x the price. That's the reason.
well, yeah, we'll throw that in there, and then we're gonna have to approve that with my budgeting team. So we'll have to
We'll do
approve. Well,
that.
might have to expense that. Well, sweet. Thanks everybody for listening. This was a fun one to do because obviously a lot of what we do is based on stats, but ultimately stats are only valuable if you use them correctly and if you implement them correctly. And so once again, that's why I think it's so valuable not only to keep your own stats, but to be aware of what the average is in your handicap group, because everybody wants to get better at golf. And you can't really get better at golf if you don't know where you're going. And so some of these stats give you context of where you need to go. I know that's been super valuable for me.
Yeah, guys, putting's fun. It really is. Holing putts is fun. Two putting from long distance is fun. Reading a putt that was double breaking is fun. Just treat it like that. So, guys, thanks for listening. Use PRG Pod if you want a discount on the app, and we'll see you guys next time.
We will see y'all next week.